All right, looks like we're back. All right. So we had to quit the other live stream and tear it down because the audio was chopping up. Usually when that happens, it's an indicator that I restart my got a Wi-Fi that on and can hear me okay, and we are on. If you're in the chat now, let me know what we're looking video 1 through. Let's rate it on a 1 to 10. And we'll just kind of give everybody an opportunity to show back up in the chat. Just a few things I want to go over with you guys, some ideas that I had. I just want to kind of run it by you, see what you say. So when everybody gets in here, we'll get going. What's going on, Lisa? Welcome in. Happy Friday. So today's title, do not attribute to malice that which can be explained by incompetence. Kind of switched it up a little bit, but that's what I want to talk about today. Ever since the arrest of Richard Allen, there's been somewhat of a divide amongst the Delphi community, so to speak. Right? There's some people that feel like he's innocent. There's some people that 100% feel like he's guilty. So what I want to do is bring everybody back to the table. We'll find some common ground, find something that we can all agree on, and maybe get to the source of the divide. You know, what caused this? But first, I want to kind of do a little experiment. I want to go over all of the things and all of the reasons that people feel like Richard Allen is 100% guilty. I want to go over all the reasons that people think Richard Allen is 100% innocent. And then we're going to look at what sparked that debate. What sparked these issues? What was it? Can we attribute it to incompetence? Right? Because I think that's the common ground, right? Fuck the police. Some of us are just blindly following law enforcement. We just eat up anything that they say. And then you have the other side. They just won't believe anything that comes from law enforcement at all. I mean, they're borderline anarchists. So I think that's the source of the problem right there. Is we have some people that are radical and looking and having a distrust in law enforcement, and then you have people who have a trust. In the middle, if we can all just I think so. If we can look at all the major pieces of information that caused the divide, I think we could successfully attribute it to incompetence rather than mass or kind of Illuminati conspiracy, right? I mean, I do see Holman. He's obviously Illuminati confirmed. His signal. Jari, Tom, what's going on, Tom? Timmy, what up? Never Believer, welcome back. Says audio is good to go. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, so let's start here. What's the number one reason that people think Richard Allen is innocent? Right, let's go. Let's make a little list here. Why is he innocent? Tell me right now in the chat. And if you're part of the replay crew and you missed the live, well, first of all, screw you, buddy. Where were you? Secondly, let me know in the chat what you think, or in the comment section. Never a Believer. They think he doesn't look like the bridge guy. Okay. Well, during the trial, it kind of came out that they didn't do a whole lot. Sent Libby's video to Net and to Disney and all these things, right? These are all like Masonic companies. Like NASA, 100% Masonic. Disney, oh, don't even get me started on Disney with the Masonry and the Satanism and the child on Disney. I mean, we probably haven't even scratched the surface with that shit. Tip of the iceberg. So that's just building onto the conspiracy, right? Oh, we sent it to Disney. Why? For animation? Like, what the fuck? So they didn't do a good job in analyzing it, allowing others to get the original source so that they could analyze it. It was almost like they wanted to keep it ambiguous. Okay, let me see what I can do about this. Here, usually my wife knows how to fix it. Let's see. All right, we'll see if that work, if she can fix it. Thank you, She Warrior. Let me know if it gets better. I never know if there's a PlayStation upstairs. It's like downloading or updating, or you never. There's 50 million things attached to this damn Wi-Fi. Never a believer. 2 girls, 1 guy couldn't kill on his own at his size. Well, what about the let's stay on the video and we'll go to that one. So, right, doesn't that make sense that they didn't do everything that they could with that video? There's no reason that they couldn't release the original. They tried to chastise Carrie and Anna Spear. Simple question, Coleman. Just fucked up. Everything that they said has been bullshit. So once again, if it wasn't for them, right, incompetence, not malice, we would have had more answers when it came to the video. So it's not like some conspiracy. I think it's pride, right? Before the fall comes the pride. So I think we can once again attribute to incompetence rather malice when it comes to the video. Jari, everyone waited for the prosecution's big reveal, and there really wasn't much there. Yeah, there wasn't anything. I mean, these guys were lost. They were floating in the wind from the beginning. Oh, we need this sealed. We believe others are involved. I mean, what was all that? I feel like that was all connected to Kagan Klein. And then when they ran it by their lawyers and everybody, they said, shit, this is fruit of a poison tree. We can't use any of this. What are we going to do? Fucking come up with the lost tip. Thank you, She Warrior. Let me know how it's going now. Enough, but what I expect. Really nothing. I guess the bullet. Yeah, the bullet, it was everything. The whole trial was just to match bullshit for bullshit and hope that the defense didn't stack their bullshit enough to spill over and control it. Because that's it. Right? Even did on. That's how much they bullied us. Didn't even do their all the law enforcement and the prosecution side did as far as analyzing that bullet. You guys did, oh, you did this or you did that. Okay, what'd you do? Oh, well, we'll do anything. Well, why? Well, because we didn't want to run the test and then, help prove to you that Richard Allen is the killer. Because we're fully aware of the power of that evidence, and we're going to do our best with the powers and the skills and manipulation that we've acquired over these years to try to spin this ignorant jury of all it. And when I say that they're ignorant, prefer professional, even if you want to call them experts, right? If they can all agree that these are experts, let's get a panel of 12 experts, put their bias on the table, put it all out there. Don't hide it. Because really, everybody has a bias. Even with the Karen Reed trial, we saw that some people were affected by the crowd. They didn't want to piss off that crowd. They're not going to come out and say that publicly. But seeing that mob of people and all these people screaming and yelling, and all you are is on a jury, like, you didn't ask for this. They're going to be affected by that, and it's going to affect their judgment. Whether they come out and admit it to the public or not. By the way, I'm playing devil's advocate. Yes, I got you, Never Believer. Thank you. Let's go back to this one. I appreciate that, by the way. Yeah, that's what I was asking for. So thank you. All right. Never Believer, second suggestion. Thank you for your participation, by the way. Because this is helping with the point I'm going to try to make here. Right? So Never Believer. 2 girls, 1 guy couldn't kill on his own at his size. Okay. So did law enforcement fail to explain how that's possible to the public? Or do they not know? Right? They're so incompetent, even they have no fucking clue whether there was 2 guys, 3 guys, an Odinist ritual, or if it was just little Ricky. So once again, that's how they believe that he's innocent. Rick couldn't have done this. Because I don't know if law enforcement even believed it. They couldn't accept it at the beginning, right? And that's what Baldwin was trying to say. Like, hey, even they didn't believe Rick did this alone. So once again, incompetence. That was stupid to do that. To try to get it all sealed and try to say other people are involved. Like, what are you doing? It just looks suspicious, right? So it's not malice. These guys are literally just idiots. From Judge Diener all the way down to Nick. That's our common ground, you guys. Whether you believe Richard Allen is innocent or guilty, we need to all finally just come and agree to that. This was the worst investigation that we've ever seen in a high-profile case that has a huge social media following. It's just ridiculous what they did, and the way they tried to explain it, and the way that Doug promised answers and then just retires. Whew, no answers for you. Was all fucking lies. Lie after lie after lie. Does that mean that Rick is innocent? No, not at all. It just means while they prove that he's guilty, they're going to do their best not to look like shit. But we need both sides to come to the table and let's begin negotiating. That is my first offer, is fuck the police. Right? And everybody else that's trying to control the curious brains. Right? We're not going to listen to them. Actually, that's a good time for my new addition. Plug your ears.
Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you.
Right? That's what I grew up with. Appreciate it. Yep, it is Pride. All right, V, what's up? Ron Logan fits the bridge guy better than Richard Allen, in my opinion. Ron Logan was in the same outfit shortly after. His phone was near the bridge at the time. By the way, I don't think Ron Logan was the killer, only that he fits the bridge guy better. Okay, so once again, I believe we have incompetence, right? We have Nicole Robertson writing a affidavit to run a search warrant on Ron Logan that's just filled with misinformation. Says the girls were dropped off around 1. That's just fucking bullshit. And why is she writing the affidavit to begin with? It doesn't make any sense for her to be doing that. It's as if she's trying to teach these guys, right? Here, let me show you how to do it. Because they were already late in getting that search warrant served. So what does that leave? Questions, right? Fuck, Ron Logan. Now we find out he redid his bathroom. You guys didn't even check the pipes. With Rex Heuermann, they checked the pipes. Tone down the rhetoric. Do what you want. Okay, what kind of rhetoric are we referring to? Because you have people that hear the truth and then they get sad. And then they think words can hurt. Honestly, I can't communicate with people like that anyway. What's up, Fishy? To be fair, the media reports from that night also said 1-1 for when the girls were dropped. Yeah, but who cares what the media says? That's not who we're relying on. At least I hope nobody in my audience is relying on what the media is saying. Who gives a shit what they say? You can pull up 4 reports put out on the same story during the same hour, and there'll be all different information within those reports. Nicole Robertson should not be going off what she's hearing in the media, especially after reading her deposition, where she literally says she was sitting in a room filled with ISP and the sheriff's department and Delphi law enforcement. And she puts 1 o'clock. So that's a blatant lie. So it's almost like she wanted to take the fall for it. Like, oh, we're going to try to frame this up like Ron Logan did it. But we need it to be at 1. So it's either they were planning on withholding the Hoosier Harvest Store video, or they didn't even have it yet. And that's always what I assumed, is if they're putting 1 o'clock, that's because they didn't have the Hoosier Harvest Store video in their possession at that time, which is hard to believe, because usually those things erase themselves after like 30 days or something like that. So that means that somebody recorded it and held on to it. V says the police. Just kidding, though. Oh, that rhetoric? No, I think that's where we need to meet. Fuck the police. If we can't all agree that Holman and all these guys fucked up this investigation, we're never going to agree on anything. That needs to be the negotiating chip right there. You have a group of people who are very passionate that Richard Allen is innocent, and you have people that will give their left testicle or their left nipple, whatever, guys, girls. They're going to sacrifice something huge because they know 100% Richard Allen is guilty. I don't care what anybody says. He was found. He was tried and found guilty by a jury of his peers. That's it. Nothing else to be said about it. And then there's some of us out there that we know what's going on in that courtroom. We know that these teams of lawyers are trying to do their best to manipulate a jury of ignorant people. And when I say ignorant, I don't mean stupid. I mean they're clueless to the facts. So that makes them gullible. They're sitting ducks for these master manipulators, right? A lot of these types are psychopaths themselves. You don't have to be a sadistic killer to be a psychopath. You know, most of these types, that's just what they are, right? Narcissists and psychopaths. Doesn't mean they're violent killers or even sadistic. They just have no empathy. They don't care. They're going to get from their point A to point B just like a serial killer. And this is their MO. And they'll go in there and they'll manipulate that jury because they want to win. They want to be successful. And they don't care at what cost. Rhetoric Ricky. Hey, Darkside, what is up? I think if we didn't have anything, though, the video bullet confessions, Richard would still be the number one suspect, just by his own statements alone. What he was wearing and times he was there. No, that's the point, Darkside. That's my goal. That's how you get all of these pro Ricky is Bay types to where to what you just said. That's the goal. That's where we want them. But they have such a hatred of law enforcement and they have such conspiratorial views when it comes to law enforcement in cases like this. We can't get them there, right? They don't have any trust for law enforcement, and some of us have too much trust in law enforcement. So the only way to get to where you're saying we should be, we have to say fuck the police. Right? Because once we can say fuck the police and we can put them aside, like, hey, get you out of the way and look at the facts, it puts Rick Allen as, at the very least, the number one suspect. I don't care if you put him alongside Ron Logan. You know, we can compare facts and put that all together. But nothing's gonna happen unless we can all agree that fuck the police and fuck the people that are telling us to stop being curious, to halt your curious minds. No, we're not going to do that. So once again, guys, plug your ears.
Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you.
And it's just going to be like that. CJK says, phone pings in that area aren't reliable. Ron may have been home and his phone showed closer to the bridge. TCW did testing in that area. Very interesting. Well, yeah, it's a low accuracy report. There was one that was also done on Libby's phone, and we recently talked about that. When they do a low accuracy, it's not all of the markers in the coordinates. It's like barely half. So half will put you somewhere in the area, but it's not very accurate. So when they're running those types of phone pings with low accuracy, it's just going to be somewhere in the area, depending on the towers. And they explain that during the trial. So they kind of report the very accurate locations, which have full coordinates, and they have those all along the trails for Abby and Libby that day. It was the data that they pulled from Libby's phone. But within that data, it also had low accuracy geolocators, which just kind of put them near. I think it even put them like somewhere over by I don't know, like the CPS building or some shit, like the actual the welfare building. I think it was. Visa. Some people do wrong because they believe it serves a greater good. They feel the ends justify the means. That's true, and that's scary when you're in that situation for everyone involved. What the ends are in this case, I can't say, but it's a possibility for certain motivations. Well, I think some of the motivators for law enforcement were, hey, we're under the microscope here. The world is watching us, and we fucked up. How do we do what we do best and spin this? Right? How do we tell a different story than what is actually going on? Because if what actually was going on ended up in this fairy tale or this history book, it would show that the investigation was inept and incompetent from the very beginning. And we all need to come together on that. I know it sounds harsh, and we got to support these guys. They're heroes, and they do all this. I mean, you can do that too, because all those things are true. But both can be true at the same time. They fucked up this investigation. There's no way around it. So for those of us that say, oh, law enforcement, the jury, they found him guilty, blah, 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 we all know that that doesn't mean shit. False confessions. Boom, that shit's easy. I'm sure me and Fishy could interrogate anybody in this chat and get him to falsely confess. If we had the full weight of the fucking U.S. government and the state behind us, and we had all day to manipulate you, and you had just the right amount of IQ, or curiosity, to where we can keep you in there and implement tactics that will have you believing that if you just say what we want you to say, we'll let you walk, buddy. Just tell me what I want to hear. And you could walk out that door. As soon as they sign the paper, they're like, can I leave now? Nope. Cuff this motherfucker. Happens every day. And the thing is that's where it all starts. That's where it all starts. Law enforcement and investigative teams, they don't care if you're guilty or not. Once they have a pile of evidence, they don't care if you're innocent or guilty. There is now probable cause to believe that you might have done this. Not for me to say, let's go ahead and hand it over to the prosecutor. Prosecutor's like, oh, yeah, this is probable cause here. Not for me to decide. Let me go and pass it on to a judge. Judge says, oh, yeah, a lot of probable cause here. Not for me to decide. Let me go ahead and pass it over to the jury. Jury says, oh, yeah, there's a whole lot here. This guy's definitely guilty. Yep. Who do we pass it on? No, you don't pass it on anymore. You just send him to prison. Oh, okay, guilty. And then that's it. That's not justice. That doesn't mean he's innocent. The fact that the cops sucked and did such a horrible job on this investigation, it's just human. They're just human. They weren't ready for this. How many times we got to sit there and listen to Doug Carter talk about how, oh, I've never been in front of anything like this before in my life. Be patient. Oh, yeah, I'll tell you all about Kagan Klein and, I'll tell you all about everything. You just got to be patient. In the meantime, Robert Ives, he doesn't do anything for Flora. No, doesn't do anything for Delphi, retires. In comes Slick Nick. I'll fix it. You guys can count on me. So you think there's this huge conspiracy going on, right? You're attributing to malice, which can be explained by incompetence. And we all need to come together knowing that. We're at the negotiating table. I want all of you who support Richard Allen to think about it. Why do you? It's not because you believe he's innocent. It's because you distrust this group of investigators so much that there's no way you're convinced. But once we can remove that radical thinking and all together say, fuck the police, they did a shitty job, then they can start to see that at the very least, he is the number one suspect, right? No alibi. Didn't even attempt to really say he is an innocent person. Still hasn't publicly made a statement. Go ahead. You can leave right now, buddy. I fucking dare you. I fucking dare you to leave this room. You're going to write down on this fucking piece of paper what I want to hear. And you're going to do it right now, boy. And then you let me leave? Yeah, sure. I'll let you leave. All right. Give me a pen. Lock them up, boys. Yeah, false confessions happen every day. And these attorneys, right before a trial, they're literally trying to pick the most gullible juror. Right? The prosecutor's like, yep, that's an acceptable amount of gullible. I think we can kind of spin him more. I think he's more our type of gullible. Yeah, we'll take him. The defense is dumb. Those idiots. They don't even know how gullible that person is. We're going to show them. Right? They're fighting for who's going to manipulate the jury more efficiently. Fishy, did you know that they only tested 8 guns in the whole time? 3 of them were in 2017, like the first few months. And then 4 of them were from the river search. Interesting. The only question for that, Fishy, is it malice or is it incompetence? Or is it just really the only good evidence that they had against Richard Allen? That's the only thing holding everything together, is actual proof. And the only reason I know that this is proof, Fishy, is because Richard Allen's defense team, they did not conduct their own tests, right? How are you going to sit there and criticize the prosecution and law enforcement? Oh, they fired the gun and they did this, this, and that. They could have. Anybody can manipulate this. Okay, well, let me see what you guys did. Let me see your test, Andy and Rosie. Come on, let's see what your test results show. Yeah, about that. We didn't run our own tests. You didn't run your own tests? Okay. So why is it that you're criticizing them about their testing and you think that it's flawed? Is there a reason you chose not to show them how it's done? Actually, to be honest, Your Honor, and I'm going to be honest, we were a little bit afraid that if we actually did our own testing minus the firing, right, there's the incompetence. We're going to hope that the incompetence by law enforcement trying to do all this weird shit by firing the gun, knowing that it's not consistent, right? We don't know exactly what Richard Allen did with the gun, but we're pretty sure he didn't fire it. Those guns are pretty reliable in muck and mud from what I've seen. So once again, it's incompetence. Like, why are you even doing that? So Richard Allen, his defense team has something to use, right? He has this incompetence that he's going to lean on. Because if he ran his own test, he's going to show him how to do it in a proper fashion, and it's going to probably even be a closer match. And they're not going to run that risk because they know that that's solid evidence. They know what tool mark evidence is. And the fact that you could even make it match after you fire it, how impossible that must be to make something that's already an improbability probable. That's crazy. It's astronomical. Hey, Sparky, what up? Yeah, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. Don't be a scrub. Don't be hanging out the passenger side of your best friend's ride. Trying to holler at me. Jeez. What's wrong with you guys? It's disgusting. Shameful even. Totally didn't say hi back. Yeah, that was rude. Well, Sleuth, it actually makes sense because if you don't believe that's a valid method of testing evidence, then why would you use that to test evidence? That doesn't make any sense. You would have to show me why it's invalid, right? You would have to show me that you ran the tests and none of your shit matches. But if you run a test and it shows that, hey, it does match, your tests are better than mine. So yeah, that's a logical fallacy right there. That doesn't make any sense. You can't criticize somebody unless you have something to compare it to. You would have to show why it's flawed. Like, look at this. Look what we did. We ran our own tests. We fired it. And look, see how it matches? Oh my God. Yeah, that matches. Yeah, well, that's not Rick's bullet. How about that? See, they could have done something like that. Like, look, it doesn't match. Why does theirs match and ours doesn't match? Can you explain that? Because it's junk science. That's why they don't match. But the thing about the scientific method is that it could be repeated. That's why they call it science. I could take your equation and reproduce it. I can take your ingredients and make the exact same thing. The only way to prove that's flawed is to do the exact same thing and get different results. They were afraid to do that. So the only thing that the prosecution and the investigative team had was a bullet, right? That's it. And it was everything. I'm not saying that's it, but I'm saying none of their investigative work did anything, right? The stuff that they did with the video didn't help at all. Stuff they did with the sketches didn't help at all. The confusion that they put out in the pressers didn't help at all. 2019 presser, new direction with some young looking fucking guy, didn't help at all. Not releasing the full video didn't help at all. The shit that they would say to the media didn't help at all. They didn't do anything. So once they found out, all they did was take the fence didn't stack their shit high enough to spill over the fence that was built by that bullet. What? We got a bunch of scrubs. Do you have to show why it's valid? Why? What's valid? Yeah, you're going to have to. You can't sit there and tell me. It'd be like me sitting on a basketball court, right? And I'm shooting free throws. I'm like, I'm making like 1 out of 5. And you're on, you're behind the fence over there like, hey, you need to put more rotation on it. You need to put your hand, on the line and center it on the ball. And I'm like, well, come show me. And you're like, no. Nope. Not going to do it. You're like, well, I'm not going to believe you then. I don't believe that you know how to shoot. Why would I listen to you? You're afraid to shoot the basketball? You were over there telling me how to do it, what I was doing wrong, and why I suck. And then the second I ask you to do it, you can't come over here and you can't show me how to sink a beautiful free throw? All that talking. That's why they wanted the metallurgist to come so that he could explain the difference in a fired versus fired round. That doesn't make any sense, Fishy. I don't think you understand what tool mark evidence is. That's the problem. I don't think a lot of people grasp it. They think it's just like a scratch in the metal. And they think, oh, well, randomly, these scratches, maybe some people might think that these scratches match. Maybe you think that they look similar when really they're not. Maybe I disagree. It just doesn't work that way. Under a microscope, it's just like a fingerprint. So the fact that they can leave that fingerprint even after firing it, if anything, firing it should have made it more unlikely that there's a match. Imagine firing it and actually matching after that. That makes it more impossible. So the fact that they did match, for me, that strengthens it. The fact that they fired it, if you have any grasp of what tool marks are, that makes it even more powerful. The defense was hoping that they could convince the jury otherwise, but it didn't work. The video, I definitely think they should have released that in the beginning for sure. I agree. There's no reason to hold it back. You can't sit there and say, oh, well, the family wants this and that. Well, the family wants justice. So why are you withholding information that could bring justice, which would be the ultimate goal, just to please the family momentarily? You think I believe that? I don't believe that for a second. You think I believe they give a shit about the family over solving this case? No. They didn't release that. I don't know why they didn't put out the whole video. They have their own motivation. I'm sure of it. 50% examiners disagreed in matching same evidence. Okay, so why didn't they run the same tests? All they had to do was run their own analysis, Fishy. I don't understand how you can argue that. Why didn't they just conduct their own tests? They could have taken random bullets, different firearms, and made them match just as good as the prosecutor was doing. If what the prosecutor was doing with their own tests were valuable or were garbage or junk science, as a lot of people like you are trying to claim, why didn't they show that it could be reproduced, that they could match it to somebody else's bullet who had nothing to do with the crime? Because tool marks do not work that way. They are like a fingerprint. It doesn't matter. Even over time, with them wearing down, it's still going to be very similar. There's no way around that. There's no way a metallurgist is going to explain that away, especially when it comes to ballistics. because even the layman can understand that something that's harder than something else can leave a scratch, right? If one thing is harder than the other cannot scratch it, right? So when you have a soft metal like brass hitting that carbon steel, it's going to leave a fingerprint. In the way that they process metal, no piece of metal is the same. All of the imperfections that are the byproduct of this long process of making carbon steel makes it factual that each piece of metal, even if it's an exact replication and the next one on the assembly line, will be identical. Darkseid said, yeah, the video gave you a much better view of him. Absolutely. In the way that everybody was analyzing the audio and doing their own testing, because come to find out, law enforcement didn't send it to NASA or Disney. They didn't do any of that shit. Everybody believed that because Anna went on Dr. Phil and said, yeah, they did send it to NASA and they did send it to Disney. Okay, none of that was talked about during the trial. So once again, it sounds like a lie that's being exposed, a lie that was told by the investigators. I'm thinking that the family and the victim's family were ignorant, right? Oh, don't you worry. We had this sent to NASA and Disney. That's the best we can do. And the reason they do that is because they always have confidence in their brothers, right? Their brothers in blue. Oh, fucking Jackie back at the crime lab, did the analysis. I have faith in him. He does wonders. I can't go over there and tell, these family members that, tell them fucking NASA and Disney are working on it. And then I'll laugh, at them when I leave. And then they repeat it on Dr. Phil. And I'm going to be like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have lied like that. What's up, Ariel? Shouldn't the jury be the one to determine if the metallurgist's testimony affected the testing of the round? No, that's up to the judge. It's the judge's job to make sure that the courtroom doesn't turn into a circus. So if what you're trying to say has nothing to do with anything that's trying to be said by the prosecution, or if it could be a distraction to the jury, the judge has every right to say no. Like, hell no, that doesn't make any sense. We're not going down some weird rabbit hole. Keep it relevant. Let's see. Why couldn't they rule out Brad Weber's gun? The same reason that they couldn't 100% rule in Richard Allen's gun. Right? It goes both ways, Fishy. During the trial, they said 100%, you cannot say 100% it's a fact, right, that these marks came from Richard Allen's gun. The answer on that stand during trial was no. I cannot say 100% that belongs to Richard Allen's gun. That was the answer, right? You can't have it both ways. Same reason that they can't say 100% it belongs to Richard Allen is the same. They can't say 100% it didn't belong to Brad Weber's. All they can say is through our analysis, through our testing, it does not match. But can I say that it for 100%? No. Just like a fingerprint. You can't prove that somebody doesn't have your same fingerprint in Malaysia or some shit. You can't prove it. It's just very unlikely. To a scientific degree. It's absolutely like a fingerprint. The same imperfections. There are no imperfections in the raw metal that will ever be duplicated. Not near each other, right? So the possibility that you have a doppelganger on the other side of the planet is very possible. May even be the same thumbnail or thumbprint. But you sure as hell ain't going to find that anywhere in the same town that you're in. Same thing goes for metal. The way they have to produce it, the things that they have to put into the metal, the fabrication of it, the melting down, the limestone, like the whole process of it is very methodical. And throughout this process on a microscopic level, because of oxygen and just imperfections within the actual raw metal itself before it's fabricated. And same thing goes for when they do I can't remember what it's called, but they actually fill in the metal and they create these small parts, and that's how most of the gun parts are actually made. There's an actual term for it. I skipped my mind right now. But even with that, they talk about the imperfections, because what's used are these small metal balls, like microscopic, and it almost looks like a powder to the naked eye. But when they fill that powder into this mold and it fuses together, it'll never be identical. You can do one after the other and compare the two, and they will not be the same because of the imperfections. The mold is identical, but the process in which you have to fill that mold with metal, that's where the imperfections come. So you could have the exact same mold, fill it with the same metal, do the same thing right after, back to back, compare the two pieces of metal. They will be completely different under a microscope. So once you take those pieces of metal that are completely different and scratch it against a softer piece of metal, it's going to leave that fingerprint of those imperfections scraped across in serrations and striations. I don't know what that is, Fishy. No, I mean, it's basically, it's a scratch. That's all it is, a scratch. But that scratch, at the end of whatever scratched the metal, there's a code. There's a code. And that code fits right on the end of whatever was used to scratch that softer metal. And that code will only fit right there. You could take the same, let's say you scratched a piece of metal with a screwdriver, right? You just scratched it across with a flathead screwdriver. And then you went to the same store, grabbed another screwdriver right from behind that screwdriver. And then you take that screwdriver and you scratch the metal. And you take both of those and put it under a microscope. You will know which screwdriver belongs to which scratch. Fishy says, I thought it was interesting that there was 3, like it had been cycled through 3 times. Yeah, he's probably taken the gun, taken that bullet out, put it back into his magazine. And next time he takes his gun out, pops the magazine back in and chambers the round. He probably did that a few times, maybe. V says, I don't know about the screwdriver identification theory. It's 100% accurate. See, this just tells me that nobody knows anything about tool marks. Absolutely nothing. And I didn't either. I had to go educate myself. But there has actually been testing on screwdrivers. Yeah, there's been people killed with screwdrivers, and their bones were scraped by the screwdriver. So it would penetrate the flesh, scrape across the bone. And when they did the autopsy, they removed the piece of the bone and compared it to the screwdriver, and it was an exact match. So it's crazy. All these people are supporting somebody like Richard Allen, and they don't even know the science. It really doesn't take that long to learn about. It's crazy. That's junk science. I heard a guy say that one time. He said junk science. And if that benefits my theory, I'm going to repeat that everywhere I go and have no real explanation to back it up. But that's the gist of why we titled this, Do Not Attribute to Malice That Which Can Be Explained by Incompetence. And I'm doing this in hopes that both sides that have been split since the arrest of Richard Allen, we've been separated. Nobody can agree on anything. Everybody's fighting and arguing. And I think it's simple. I think I've broken it down. You have one group that trusts the police way too much. And then you have another group that will never, ever believe a word that comes out of law enforcement's mouth. So where we're going to come together and where I would like to start the negotiating is right here at Fuck the Police. They did a shitty job. They're not shitty people. They just did a shitty job with this investigation. And we can easily attribute that to the incompetence and not malice. I think if we can all agree there, those of us who remain curious can continue to do so. Maybe we can work together. I have a dream that one day a police source is the screwdriver ID case. Because do you not know how to do any research, V? You got to get out there. You got to dig in. You got to put your fingers in the soil. So they even will tell you it's subjective. What is subjective? Fingerprint subjective, can still be evidence. Means it's not reproducible, or that would be objective. No, subjective means that you could have a group, let's say a group of 10, and 9 people agree and 1 doesn't. They've actually done actual studies like this, where they took tool mark evidence and they only had like 2% that disagreed. So yeah, that makes it subjective. Well, that's not what makes it subjective. What makes it subjective is that it's a person's perception, right? It's their interpretation. That's what makes it subjective. It's an interpretation from a human brain. And that person is trying to explain to us that what they're seeing is in some way scientific. But the truth is, that's not what's scientific. What's scientific is the understanding of the metal itself and how tool marks can affect metal, and how tool marks can never, ever be reproduced unless you put something under the microscope and chiseled away at it to create the code, right? There's a code on every end of every piece of metal. I don't care if it was mold. I don't care if it was fabricated, laser cut, or hammered. They all have their own unique fingerprint. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's the reason Richard Allen is in prison. And that's the reason why his defense team did not do their own analysis, because they know that. Don't make me pull up the video of Scremin saying that verbatim. Okay, I also think if they could have located his phone he was using in 2017, if he's innocent, that phone would prove it. I think you're right. He would want to find that phone as much as anybody, but he didn't. He had no care about. He knows where that phone is. His lawyer should have tracked that down if he's innocent. Absolutely. They're not going to do the prosecutor any favors, right? They're going to go ahead and they're going to neglect everything that will benefit the prosecution, and they're going to pour gasoline on any brush fire that will help their client. They're not going to run a test on the most powerful evidence. You want to know why? They made a strategic plan. They said, these idiots over here, right? Not the malice guys, but the incompetent guys, right? This isn't malice. It's incompetence. Oh, we'll fire it to make it match, right? We want to seal the deal, right? They understand how tool marks work, right? Firing it, that's going to make it less likely to match. They know it from a scientific perspective. They think they're doing something great. But when you're dealing with a bunch of ignorant people, a jury of 12 who have no clue about tool mark evidence, they're not thinking about that. They weren't considering the fact that the defense is going to step in and use that to manipulate the jury. Like, why is it that you're firing the gun? Oh my God. And the jury's going to be like, yeah, why'd you do that? Rick never fired the gun. That doesn't seem like they're being honest. So instead of running their own test, they just try to exploit that, right? Let's get Rick off with the technicality. That's what defense attorneys are great at. That's why they brought in that old guy. I can't remember his name, but that's what he was known for during the when they were dealing with the Supreme Court. And then they brought him on afterward. I can't remember his name. He's an older guy, but he was known for exploiting technical issues. So anything that law enforcement would do, violating rights or anything like that, he would get his client off, knowing that he was guilty. I think he represented that one guy in Indiana who he took some guys out to show him a switch, and then instead of selling him the switch, he just killed him with it. Well, they found like a Fourth Amendment violation against him with this attorney. Shit, I can't remember his damn name. It might have been Hennessy. I don't know. Might have been Hennessy. Yeah, you might be right, V. Whoever it was represented this guy, got him out of jail on a technicality, on a Fourth Amendment violation. They had to wait for him to fuck up and get new evidence to put him in prison. And thank God they did. But this scumbag was able to get him off on a technicality. And that's what Andy and Rosie were trying to do. And that's what they're good at. Oh, anytime, Fishy. You're a good sport. Hey, Tom, where the hell you been? I think the bullet found in Richard Allen's keepsake box is the same bullet he threatened to take his own life with. He got rid of all the ammo since 2017, but forgot about that one. I don't know. It could have even been like his trophy, Tom. You know, like I have a little keepsake box, and I have all kinds of weird stuff in there, like the bracelets for all my kids from the hospital. I have some of my baby photos in there. I think I have like some, I don't know, there's like a bunch of random stuff in there. I think I have one of my daughter's teeth in there rolling around. A lot of weird shit. So it's like things that were important to me, something. So for him to have that bullet in there like that, it was like a trophy. You know, every time he opened up his box, you could see in there, he had all the stuff on his daughter, her graduation, like things he was proud of. He had some note in there that said, I love you, like things he couldn't get rid of. You know, things that make you feel good that you can hold in your hand and it reminds you of something. That's a trophy. We all keep them. The thing about sadistic killers is they collect trophies and souvenirs from their crimes. So for him to have that in the keepsake box and right there visible, to me means every time he does that, he gets a dose of that that duper's delight. That haha, like I am smart. I'm smarter than everybody. Right? I'm smarter than that sleuth guy on YouTube who keeps making fun of me and saying that I have mom issues. He doesn't even know I'm in his chat. Haha, you know, I'm getting over on these guys. They'll never catch me. And even up until the point where they were looking at him as a suspect, he still remained in those interviews trying to, thinking he can outsmart them, sticking around, trying to glean information. Right? He was so curious and he was so arrogant. He thought he could get more information from them while remaining unharmed. Shout out to the Fishy at Don't Hate Create. Okay, we'll look for the screwdriver case maybe later. Yeah, it's out there. It is out there. How's your little baby doing, Sleuth? Great. Thanks, Fishy. You know, I wanted to talk about him more, but it's just people kind of, they don't know their line. They cross that line. So I guess I'm going back to private, Sleuth. It's all good, though. Neil, I hate Baldwin and Rosie. Don't let anybody steal your love, especially people that you dislike. You can love Baldwin and Rosie without respecting them. I think you might be right, V. I think it might have been Hennessy. I'm glad they didn't succeed at getting Richard Allen off the hook. Yeah, I figured these guys, if there was anything to get him off on, yeah. They would have, I think. But I think all the reasons that people are supporting Richard Allen and they feel like something's not quite right, not sitting right with them, and they feel like he's kind of a patsy, I think can all be attributed to incompetence, not malice. So we'll do one or two more. So in the chat, I want any reasons. You can play devil's advocate. Why a lot of people think Richard Allen is innocent. Like some of the main reasons. And we'll see if we can attribute that to corruption in law enforcement or just simply incompetence. And then we'll get out of here. And then hopefully in the chat, we can find some common ground. You know, there's been quite a divide in the community, and that doesn't help anything. It's kind of pushed everybody away from the Delphi case. They're like, oh, I don't want any part of that. If we can come back to the table and just agree on the fact that law enforcement really did a shitty job and that we don't have to go around kissing their ass and we don't have to go around letting our hatred for law enforcement blind us to the fact that no matter what, Rick is still the number one suspect. Right? And the only thing that keeps him from being the killer is this tool mark evidence that people just want to turn a blind eye to. And we're talking about evidence that the defense team wouldn't even touch with a 10-foot pole. V, when lawyers get people off on a technicality, shouldn't the blame go to the police or the prosecution rather than the lawyers? Yeah, that's true. But it depends. I mean, what if you have a lawyer? He knows you're guilty, right? He's like, oh, you're guilty, but you're lucky. These guys fucked up. So he's letting a killer go. I mean, what would he even do in that situation, V? I mean, you can't just, it'd be like self-suicide, self-destruction. To be like, hey, I believe that my client is guilty, but that doesn't matter because you guys fucked up, and now because of a technicality, he's free, whether he's guilty or not. Yeah, that's a shitty situation. Too much trust involved. You know, there's not a whole lot of ethical people around these days, unfortunately. So I don't really put my trust into people. Never a believer off chat, but did you see why all the trash at Charlie's memorial was because no cans were allowed due to Secret Service protocol, and it was all cleaned up by the end of memorial? Well, I was there. Well, I don't know. I wasn't at the memorial, but I was at the funeral. Is that what you're referring to? Well, what happened was the trash wasn't all cans. It was all kinds of shit. I mean, it was people's purses. You weren't even allowed to bring your purse. It was purses. It was bags. It was makeup bags. It was food. So what happened was you weren't allowed to camp overnight. So everybody showed up at like 1 a.m. They showed up at 1 a.m. and just kind of set up a makeshift camp because there was limited amount of people who could get in. So they basically just camped out in their lawn chairs, but they had all their food, right? They couldn't get up because if they got up, they were going to lose their seat. So they had people delivering them food, going to the grocery store, bringing bags of drinks and sandwiches and donuts and just stuff to kind of tide them over. So when the Secret Service opened the gates and let everybody into the funeral service, they just left their shit. They didn't even take their chairs. And sometimes they were told, hey, you can't bring in your purse, or you can't bring this, you can't bring that. So it just all started to pile up at the doors. That was our Neil. From the day before. And plus, there was businesses within walking distance. There were some hotels. I think there was a 24-hour Walgreens or something around there. But they did have about 6 outhouses just right there in that area. Actually had to use one when I showed up. But yeah, the drone footage from the day prior shows those same outhouses kind of sitting out there. So I'm assuming they had access. V says, how about all the different looking sketches and all the witnesses describe a person that doesn't match Richard Allen? Once again, I just feel like people don't understand really what a sketch is and how the memory works. of a witness. Sketches have never ever been allowed in a courtroom. It's just an investigative tool. It's to help law enforcement kind of find a direction to go in. Let's see. I might have a good example. What about a recent case here? Robert Eugene, all right? Robert Eugene Brashers, the yogurt shop killer. Actually, he was actually a serial killer. Well, let's pull up his sketches. Here, I'll share my screen and we'll look at these sketches here. See, I think people just really need to take some time to kind of educate themselves. This one looks like fucking Ron Logan. Right? The only thing consistent is the glasses. And kind of like the hair right here. The hair is very similar. This guy looks fucking 90. Yeah, the video was worse than the sketches. Yeah, but just look how different. I mean, these aren't different people, are they? Right? Oh my God, he's innocent. Look. Witnesses said he looked like an old man. Well, which is it? Here's one with him actually in the mix. Oh, here's the newest ones. Here's some other sketches. That's actually him. Is that him? How did they get that wrong? Whoa. That looks like the bridge guy. And what the hell is that? That don't look like him. But what's one thing that's consistent? Right? The wire rim glasses. Same thing with Richard Allen's eyes. Richard Allen's eyes. Both sketches are identical. That's pretty much all they had were the eyes. So sometimes we need to try to recognize where we're putting too much in the pot, right? We're putting too much into the sketches. We have to take personal responsibility for coming to a conclusion, leaning on evidence that's garbage, right? It's not even allowed into the courtroom. You can't even bring these sketches into a trial. So why am I leaning so much on these sketches and I'm supporting Richard Allen over it? Right? These sketches that don't mean anything. It's an investigative tool to help get the investigative team to a potential suspect. It's not to say, hey, look at the sketch I had. It matches this guy. No, it's just to help them get to the guy. And then once they have the guy, they serve a search warrant, and then they find the gun that matches the bullet. That's the purpose of a sketch. Not to make it look like the killer. It's to find something, right? The glasses. The glasses are the only consistent thing in this sketch. That makes it huge. Same thing with Richard Allen. The eyes, the nose was consistent in both sketches. Why is that? Because that's the only thing that they really had. The rest was just bullshit. I mean, look at this fucking guy. Who the hell is this guy? Sure as hell ain't him. But it is, right? But it is. All right, guys, this is going to be our 5-minute warning. If there's anything you got to get out there, or gosh dang it, Sleuth, if you got to listen to what I got to say here, you're wrong about this, you better get it out now. Yeah, but I mean, what are these? Are these witnesses? Are they lying? I mean, what's going on? Do they see somebody else? It's not the same guy. I should ban eyewitnesses so the courtroom doesn't become a circus. Well, I think eyewitnesses are a little bit different. Because when you have an eyewitness, when you have something like Liberty's video or an actual photograph of a suspect, then it becomes very powerful, right? A sketch, it's nothing. It has nothing to do with the crime scene. But the witness saw this person at the crime scene. I can't tell you. He kind of looked like this, but right, they showed him Liberty's video. Yeah, I don't know what he looked like, but that's the guy I saw. Like when I go into my memory bank, and I try to have a recollection and provide that to you in detail, it's going to be all skewed. It's going to have missing parts. It's going to have parts that you actually switch out with your own personal experience, right? Similar to what Betsy Blair said. Oh, well, I know I saw a car there because it was parked funny. That much I'm sure of, but I didn't get a good look at it. I think it actually looked boxy, kind of like a car that my father had. So if you understand the way that witness recollection works, it's typical to hear things like what Betsy Blair was saying about how she was filling in the gaps with her own personal experience. I didn't get a good look at the car, but it reminded me of my dad's car. He used to have a car similar to that, right? She's doing the whole Jurassic Park trying to make a fucking velociraptor, and she's using frog DNA. We all saw what happened there. Dark side. If I remember, Richard refused a few polygraph tests as well. Of course, you can't tell the jury that, but Yeah, he did. He refused. Those little black spots during his interview, those are the discussion of the polygraph test. And he refused. And I don't blame him for that. I wouldn't recommend a polygraph unless you're like you don't want to be a suspect. If you don't have a problem being a suspect, but let's say your family's involved and you're becoming a distraction, I think that would be the only time I would ever recommend doing a polygraph and doing it with an attorney and maybe specific questions, right? Verifying questions and then very specific questions like, hey, did you have anything to do with the disappearance? Do you have anything to do with the murder? Did you hold ill will towards such and such? No, 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 no. All right, that's all we need. Otherwise, if they're just kind of poking at you, like, yeah, I was at the trails. All right, well, we need you to take a polygraph. Fuck no. Well, this is the only way to eliminate you. I don't give a shit. I didn't do anything. You definitely ain't gonna fucking try to pin it on me. I'm a nervous Nelly. You ain't fucking hooking me up to that machine. I don't fault anybody for that. But if it's your family member and they're missing or you're wasting time, whatever, up on you, you just got to cooperate or you're going to waste. I've seen these investigative team tunnel vision. Your fan, right? Get from out of underneath that, clear yourself, just like Kelsey did. She went in, she was interrogated a bunch of times. She understood what we were doing. Like, hey, I was, the last person to see her. Of course they're going to interrogate me. She took like 2 polygraph tests. I mean, she's good to go, you guys. There's no reason to look at her. She's been, if anybody's been vetted, it was her. But for good reason, right? Young people commit crimes, mean teens, and familicide is a real thing. Yeah, definitely with an attorney. CJK, gotta be mindful of who you trust. My circle of trust is very small. Yeah, just my my household family is the only people I actually trust 100%. Thanks for being here, everyone. See you next time. Sleuth email. Thank you, Jari. Yep, guys, that's gonna do it. Sorry if I yelled at some of you. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. It was unintentional. Anthony, what's up, dude? What you up to? Yeah, you guys hit the thumbs up, hit the like button on the way out. Hit the Cash App if you can. If you can't, no biggie. No big deal. But I appreciate you that do. And all you members, thank you for supporting my channel. Got some things planned for you, but we won't brag about it here. You got to be a member. You got it, Sparky. All right, guys, remember, do not attribute to malice that which can be explained by incompetence. Let's come back to the negotiating table. Can we all agree the police fucked up? Just say it with me. Fuck the police. Fuck the police. Fuck them. Right? If we can agree on that, we can all together start to see Richard Allen, at the very least, the prime suspect. And then we might actually get some answers if we can all work together. Right? If we can all point this sleuth-tastic weapon all in the same direction, imagine what we could accomplish. Possibilities are endless. Take care, everybody. Peace.